Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris Johnson. You're now tuned in to KJ Live. Today's guest on the show is Steve Lavin, former UCLA and St. John's men's basketball head man for a number of years and current Fox Sports and Pac-12 commentator. He's one of the best broadcasters around and truly a cool dude. He actually was my college coach. Steve recruited me at UCLA, and that's the last time I'll ever call him Steve. It is Lav from this point forward. I just had to kind of set the stage. We're excited to have a great conversation with Lav. As soon as Lav is ready to go, we're going to call in. Hello to everyone out there that has joined. I appreciate you. This journey has been really interesting in the last, I think, 9 to 10 days before when I started this. I started KJ Live just as a way, use this as a vehicle to reach out to my network, tell some guys that I care about, that I love them, and, to try to have some conversations that might shed some light on the men that they've grown into. A lot of people remember us from our UCLA or our college years, and so it's always nice to get some perspective from people when they're an adult. And so we have Steve Lavin in the building, you guys. So I'm going to patch Lav in here. Give me 1 second. You're tuned in to KJ Live. I am Chris Johnson, waiting on to patch in Steve Lavin. Okay, it says Lav has to upgrade his app, so I got to give him a call. Well, Lav, I'll tell you what, this thing happened with Old School 88. It happened with my dad the other day, so it's not a problem. People actually like saying this, so I'm going to give you a call on your cell, okay? So hopefully you pick up so we can walk you through this. It's not a big deal. 1 second. FaceTiming Steve Lavin. Hey, Lav, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. So,
I've got to upgrade my app.
So just got to do a quick update, okay? Just do a quick update, and then it'll be upgraded. Then we'll get you on air, okay?
And I do that through the whole Instagram Live maker.
So you go to your iPhone to the app section.
iPhone app section.
Yeah, and it's gonna say, hey, you need to upgrade, and can you do it? Or should we try to do it another way because we got a big crowd forming here, and they're waiting on us.
Okay, I'll try, and if not, then you can just hit me back and we do it like this.
Yeah.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, we'll do that. But it'd be great if you can upgrade the app though. It'd be great if you could upgrade the app so we can have people because there's a chat and we can answer questions, etc.
Okay.
All right.
We'll go work on it. I'll be right back.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna play some more tunes. We have Steve Lavin. Lav is upgrading his app, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys don't leave the show. It's going to be a good show for us today. We're very excited to have Coach Lavin. I'm going to talk to him about a number of different things, a number of different topics. I'm going to pick his brain on, the Pac-12 Player of the Year, who's most draft ready, some stuff about UCLA. We're going to go take a trip down memory lane, and I'm going to get his opinion on some, bigger theme kind of topics, around affecting the country. Definitely want to tune in for this. Just as a quick programming reminder and an update, tomorrow at 12:30, we will have UCLA legend Tracy Murray joining the show. Wednesday morning at 11:30 a.m., we will have a former UCLA basketball player and the current assistant coach and director of player development for the Sacramento Kings, Rico Hines. He will be here right after Rico. We got the legendary Pump Brothers coming in the building on Wednesday. Excited about the next couple of days. March Madness is right around the corner, guys, and we are ready to go. So we're going to wait on Lav just for a little bit. See where we're at. Can you guys hear me now? Are you guys hearing me right now? Oh, you hear me good? Okay, great to hear. So you guys better check your phones who can't hear because I'm getting we have no issues here. So check your phone, maybe update your app, and maybe the sound will come through a little bit better. Let's go. Hit the chat. Let me know how I sound. I want sound issues to be great. I don't want any sound issues. Nothing. I'm not, tell me if I don't sound good. Tell me if you can't hear. Let me know, guys. I appreciate you. Please. Okay. Getting thumbs up. All right. Good. So we're waiting on Steve Lavin to update his app. And so I'm really excited, though. The programming update, I failed to mention that 7:30 a.m. on Wednesday, I have so many doggone interviews scheduled that sometimes it does slip my mind when I try to wing it. We actually have our guy Jerron Rush. Now, if you remember Jerron from UCLA, he was, a two-time All-American in high school, parade All-American, and McDonald's All-American, and out of Pembroke High School in Kansas, and was, one of the beastiest guys to come into UCLA in a long time. He had a scintillating freshman year, played the game with such an incredible motor, such a high pace, one of the most, incredible dunkers I've seen. I mean, if you haven't looked up Jerron Rush footage, I think you need to hit YouTube and remind yourselves. I'm going to let him tell you about his journey at UCLA, what he kind of went through, and what he's doing now. But it's going to be a very interesting story, and I think he's going to shed some light. I think he's going to answer some questions that a lot of us have always wanted to know about it. And that's the purpose of this show, is to sort of go beneath the surface at times with guys. And as men, sometimes, we don't want to talk about certain issues because, we have our pride, we have our ego. But, I'm trying to get to the point where we're able to open up and share for the world to see, just issues. Because it's good for the next generation that's coming up to know that everything doesn't really have to always be macho all the time. And it's okay to express yourself and to express your feelings to other men, to other brothers that you have, people that you grew up with or whatever. And this quarantine has really taught me a lot. First, it started with Kobe's death. That hit me very, very hard, just, weeks of just mourning. And then we kind of flip into the quarantine. And so, then it's like, man, you're separated from everybody. There's not a lot of social contact going on. So, you kind of get off on your own little island. And I was, spent 2020 kind of on that island, trying to better myself and do things personally. But I told myself when 2021 hit that I was going to reach out to the people. I needed to reconnect with my network, say what's up to my guys, give them their flowers, and give them a platform, an opportunity to where they could talk to me about just things like being fathers, transitioning, out of basketball, financial stuff, money, investments, and things like crypto. And we're going to have so many interesting discussions from high-level people that have their finger on the pulse of what's happening. You guys are tuned in to KJ Live. I am Chris Johnson, and Scoop B is in the building. Scoop, shout out Scoop B, baby. All right, we got Steve. Go pipe Steve in. I keep calling you Steve. I'll never call you Steve again. It's Lav. Jesus, I'm sorry, Lav. I don't know why I keep doing that, man. Lav, what's up, dude?
I navigated well.
You're
Somehow
awesome.
Found a way. Got to adjust and adapt, right, with
Naturally.
the times and upgrade apps. That's key.
Well, that's your forte, is adjusting and adapting, Coach. How you feeling?
Good overall.
Good.
In the home stretch, we could see the finish line of the college basketball season, and headed to Big East tournament coverage, but it'll be from our Fox studios in LA.
Okay.
And then obviously going to the NCAA tournament as well. And I got to turn off my if that little beeping noise and all that. What do I got to do with that?
I'm not quite sure, but I don't think it's too much.
There we go. That's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect.
Okay. Oh, so it's exciting time of the year for you, Coach. Just to kind of quickly just get into it, college basketball, what teams are you looking at? Obviously, Gonzaga is, kicking butt. I mean, it's tough to go against them, but if there was one or two teams that could challenge Gonzaga, who would they be?
Well, I think, naturally you look at the top of the rankings, and you've got teams like Michigan, even though they got knocked off by Michigan State yesterday. And so Michigan State is surging. That's not necessarily a big knock on the Wolverines. I love Juwan Howard, that NBA flavor he's brought to the college game. And just at his alma mater, the love, authentic love he has for Michigan. And great that they've been able to kind of bury the what do they call that? After the Fab Five and
the hatchet or whatever. I don't know.
Something along those lines, yeah. But that estranged relationship seems to have been healed and repaired as it should be because of what that group of players did with Chris Webber and company. So
incredible.
So I like the Wolverines. I think some of the teams in the Big 12, that in my view is the best conference in terms of the number of teams capable of making deep runs. Mm-hmm. I think the Big 10, deservedly, a lot of respect. They're going to have the most bids in the NCAA tournament, as many as 10. I think it ends up being 9 teams out of the Big 10 conference. But the Big 12, with their speed, skill, quickness, 6 coaches in that conference, that's over half the league. There's only 10 teams in the Big 12, go figure. But 6 of those coaches have been to a Final Four or won a
Wow.
national title. Yeah, and Scott Drew likely will be a 7th if he gets Baylor to a Final Four this year. So postseason experience is something I look at when handicapping the brackets. And I know a lot of people like to wager on March Madness. Look at that Big 12 conference. It's deep, it's rugged. They got quickness, they got skill, they got good coaching, and great guard play in the Big 12 as well. So teams out of the Big 12, I think a sleeper is Purdue. They're my dark horse to win a national title.
Okay. Is this a little Homer thing going on? You're a Purdue guy. You was coach there with Gene Katie. I mean, what's going on, Lav? Come on, man. Purdue, what's up?
So hear me out on this. All right, they go 9 deep. They got 4 freshmen that are in the mix, of their 9-man rotation. Travion Williams is a frontline player that loves the thrill of the pass. I think he's the best, frontline passer in the country, and hitting cutters, and does it with some panache, some style. So he's fancy but also functional. And then Jaden Ivey is a freshman that's kind of blossoming as a star right before our eyes. Stefanovic is found his groove, is knocking down threes from all angles. I think it's the most athletic Purdue team that I can recall in decades. There's times where they've been, tough defensively and deliberate on offense, work for a good shot. This team can get up and down the floor, and they've got more speed and length and quickness than past Purdue teams. They're going to come in playing with house money, no pressure because there were no expectations based on their youth. And so Matt Painter, a heck of a coach. I think he's growing with each passing year, and they've knocked on the door. We're in the Elite Eight, the heartbreaking loss to Virginia a couple of years back when Virginia went on to win the national title. So watch out for the Boilers, the Big 12 conference, all 6 or 7 of those teams capable of making noise. I'm hoping Oklahoma State is deemed eligible for the NCAA tournament. I'm not sure if we've had a ruling on that yet or not. So those are the things that kind of jump out to me. And obviously Gonzaga, the favorite to cut down the nets.
Player of the year candidate. Who you got? Player of the year candidates.
Man, I would have had James Bouknight, and that's another sleeper team. I think UConn can get to an Elite Eight, and once you get there, anything's possible. He's a lottery-level talent, a guard out of New York City, a lot of confidence and swagger, and he's helped his teammates elevate their play, which is a sign of a great player. R.J. Cole's playing better right now. Whaley, Sonogo, Martin, Pauly is outstanding. And while Bouknight was out with that injury, all those other players got burned, got reps, got confidence. And so now that he's come back into the fold, brought that lottery-level guard talent, they have a better team because while he was away, they were improving their game and their confidence level. And Danny Hurley, a bright young star in our business too, comes from a basketball royalty family with Bob Sr. and Bobby as well, Jr.
Absolutely. Thoughts on the UCLA Bruins' chances in the Pac-12?
I was big on UCLA early. They had that heartbreaking loss to Stanford, and it appears, that really was a blow, and that happens sometimes. A key win can change your outlook and be a catalyst to going on a run. We had a lot of teams at UCLA like that, and coincidentally, it was in the Bay Area where we get a big win over Stanford, win 8 straight, win 12 straight. Your team, as a senior, we had some pivotal wins, and then that led to the deep run in the tournament because you just feel different. Or it could be a player like Jerron Rush came back that year, 8 straight wins. We're in the Sweet 16.
Game winners. Is that the year you hit the game? Yeah.
It was. Yeah. So whether it's a key player or something that galvanizes a team, and you look for that as well. And I think when you look at UCLA, that loss to Stanford, they haven't played with the same confidence. No. And Johnny Juzang is balling. They have the heartbreaker, to USC the other day. And
but Lav, they're missing 2 of their best guys. I mean, what do we expect? Mick Cronin's doing a heck of a job. You got to keep it in perspective, don't you?
Well, yeah, no doubt. Now, it's UCLA.
Oh, yeah.
So there's just a different standard for excellence. And it's nice that, Mick is getting the benefit of the doubt, and it's a patient Bruin fan base now. But as if you don't get to that Final Four, And even if you do, Ben Howland went to 3 straight Final Fours, and he still was showing the door, which just tells you about the uniqueness of UCLA. And as you know, you're a part of it, with your dad having played for Coach Wooden, and yourself winning a national championship, and Josiah coming as well, your younger brother.
Yep.
And I was there 12 years, 5 as an assistant, 7 as a head coach. So I get it. And I'm rooting for Mick Cronin, because you want coaches to do well there. You know how difficult it is if you've been there yourself. It's just a unique job.
And so let's stay on UCLA. So February 11th, 1997, Pete Dallas names you head coach of the Bruins after firing Coach Herrick. You're 32 years old. You're young. I was reading that today. Like, he's so young, 32. Talk about where you were when you first got the news and who your first phone call was to.
Well, actually, the first phone call was to Mom and Dad. And then the second phone call was to Coach Wooden. And he had obviously been an advocate. And let's face it, I never get the UCLA job unless it's for John Wooden and our ties going back to Purdue, where he was a 3-time All-American, where I first met him. And then also knowing Coach Gottfried, which led to meeting Coach Herrick, and also being on Coach Katie's USA basketball staffs. I got the chance when Tracy Murray and some other Bruins, had been a part of Coach Katie's teams for USA basketball. Also led to meeting Coach Herrick when he would come back either to the trials or the practices in preparation for going overseas. So there were a number of elements that led to arriving at UCLA, first as an assistant for 5 years, and then that fateful turn of events where Coach Herrick's fired. I'm the interim coach initially, and then it's your senior year, so you know it. We start to win games. We're in first place, and thanks to the advocacy of Coach Wooden, they lift the interim tag, and then we have that 7-year run there. And I was shown the door eventually, like every coach before me, except Coach Wooden, and every coach after me.
Right. So it was actually my junior year, Lav. That's the year. It was your first year. That's the year we made the Elite Eight, and we took the L to Minnesota. They later vacated their Final Four because they were doing some academic stuff. So we took an L, and they vacated. So that kind of sucks. But staying on that, Lav, talking about my senior year, early in my senior year, before the season started, I get suspended. Jelani gets suspended. Yeah. It was a situation where we made some bad mistakes as some young kids. But my issue with it was that the media got a hold of. It was leaked, obviously, through the athletic department. So that part of it kind of pissed me off. Talk about how media coverage has changed in the last 20 years or so towards college athletes, and why they're given more of the benefit of the doubt now than, say, they were 20 years ago.
Yeah, wow. That's a great subject to really do a deep dive on, almost like in a journalism or, broadcast, film, TV class. But I would say with electronics and the 24-hour news cycle, and then specifically the 24-hour sports news cycle, and then Twitter, and now Instagram, and the different websites. But it really comes back to the electronic and information age that we live in. And that has changed the way sports is covered, politics is covered, world events is covered. And so absolutely, it's a time where you have to be really mindful, of what you say. There's a beauty to it in terms of the ability for people to express their opinions and to be able to do something like we're doing right now, be able to connect and have others join. Marshall McLuhan was on to it way back with what he called the global village. And he could see, he didn't know, rest in peace, that it was going to be exactly this, but he was on to how, information and technology and the instruments of technology would change the world forever in both good ways, but also ways that present challenges that we have to be mindful of. And so whether it's an athlete or a coach, there are times in this cancel culture where, it can line up against you. And sometimes innocent victims, and then other times people that make missteps, and there are consequences for their choice of words or their position, or really kind of maybe exposing their prejudice or ugliness. Yeah. And so again, it balances out though overall, but no doubt it's a different world from where I was getting into coaching in 1988. You have to adjust and adapt. I
Sure.
remember you were with me at St. John's early in my tenure, and the biggest difference was how the kids didn't want to talk on the phone. They didn't want the official home visits. Everything started to happen over these different social media platforms and texting
Definitely.
one another.
Definitely.
And not having necessarily the one-on-one relationship face-to-face, but instead through electronics.
Yeah, and the one-on-one face-to-face, man, was something that you were the master at just throughout your whole career. I remember when I was at UCLA as a freshman, and I was thinking about transferring. I remember I was on an exercise bike during practice, and you came over, and we had a conversation, and I kind of went off, and I did my thing that I would do, but you talked me down. But yeah, the other point is this too: as a senior, when I did get suspended, the reason why I felt like there was light at the end of the tunnel was because of you, man. So it's your conversations, it's the positivity, it was the love you were showing me when I was excommunicated, basically from the team, shunned, humiliated in front of the nation. You were my guy in my ear telling me, I need you back, Stoney. You need to be working on your shot. Get your jumpers up, bro. Get your jumpers up. That's what you was telling me. So I got thousands of jumpers up. When I came back, I turned it out. But I'm thankful for you for that, Lav. I really, that's one of the purposes of my program is to really bring people that I love and bring them on and give them their flowers, man, because you could have been a certain type of coach, man, that was like, yo, I'm off this dude. They screwed up, screw them, right? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, number one, I remember exactly where the exercise bike was, off, kind of like right behind the deep corner, right, in Poly. And I'm seeing it in my mind as I look at you to my left, just off the court, and the team practice is going on. And I remember we were talking about George McCorn and Bill Frieder, who were at Arizona State. I think they'd recruited you initially. Yep. You guys win the city, and was it state championship as well?
Yeah, twice.
As a senior?
2 years in a row.
Back to back. And we share that in common. We'll talk about that again another day. But the Drake High Pirates, as you know, surprisingly, back-to-back state titles as well.
Shout out Marin County, baby.
Yeah. So we share that commonality. But then also remember the conversations during the difficult time that you just kind of documented when you were suspended from the team. And remember your dad coming in, and we had some really authentic conversations and healthy dialogue about some of the concerns, and in particular, the leaking of information. And kind of that Shakespearean, Machiavellian, 3 Days the Condor, Godfather, all the President's Men elements that are real. There's a reason those movies are so popular. It's because it mirrors life itself and reality.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, we were going through a lot of different, sides to that element and that juncture in UCLA basketball history. And I was glad to be able to ride and die with you. And you responded in a mature fashion, after we got through some of the initial difficult stages of it. And that was the now what. I remember us talking about, okay, these circumstances are less than ideal. It's not fair. We're probably never going to get to a place where things are just, but now what? And that's how I think it's so important, and what athletics teaches us, not to make light of it or sound trite or corny, but we do have to reframe, based on our circumstances, and reframe and say, okay, where are we headed now? We always talked about it, right? Where have we been? Where are we now? And where do we want to go? And checking back in with that is so important, I think, in sports and beyond sport, in life. Where have we been? We learn from our past, look back long enough to learn, but you don't want to live in the past. You've got to be in the present, which is now, both feet firmly planted in today and doing the best we can in the moment. That's what Coach Wooden's peace of mind and the pyramid of success is all about. And then also having goals and aspirations and dreams, and keeping that childlike spirit alive to move forward, and also be resilient and be ready for the curveballs and the unexpected things that occur in our life, whether you're showing the door with the pink slip, whether you get cancer, you lose loved ones. At the end of it, it comes back to now what?
Yeah, and I think the audience can get a feel for the type of mentor, the type of, the talking you would give us. You also had the 50-year plan, and it's the 50 year, right? It was the 50-year plan. So the 50-year plan.
I think there might have been a 40-year life plan that came out about a decade later.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out. I was trying to figure. I saw that around. I'm like, how does he drop in a 40 anyway? no accreditation or nothing. But anyway, so the 50-year life plan was something that Lav gave to us. It was like a binder of just life lessons, things you should, think about, and affirmations and all type of stuff. Lav, so many of your former players have been so successful in so many different, things, media, television. You got guys making the NBA as businessmen now. How much of that makes you feel proud?
Well, it's the greatest joy in life is seeing your children, seeing your players, if you're a teacher, seeing your pupils, and really teaching and coaching and parenting are all related because it's about, seeing young people get closer to the full expression of their potential and to chase their dreams. And so watching, our players from your era, before and after your era, and then the St. John's players as well.
Absolutely.
Seeing them thrive is the greatest satisfaction as a coach. Yesterday I turned on ESPN and in studio was Sean Farnan and John Crispin at the same time.
What? Farnan and Crispin? That's sick.
On the same studio show. So I was snapping pictures of that, just getting a kick out of it. But Earl Watson, NBA head coach after that 13-year NBA career, and then doing stuff now with the Pac-12 and NBA TV, and Matt Barnes with All the Smoke and Steven Jackson, their podcast and other things he's doing in studio and whatnot. Sure. Todd Ramasar is an agent, Barron doing his filmmaking.
King Josiah Johnson, bro, shout him out.
Yeah, Legends of Chamberlain Heights, and all that creative content, and his unique, fresh, original way of, talking about pop culture and what's going on in athletics and the memes. And that is, Quinn Hawking also, those two rode together in that, Legends of Chamberlain Heights, loosely based, as you know, off their UCLA experience, kind of like the entourage of college basketball, and bench warmers that had game because of their association with UCLA and the great school that it is. So there's no doubt that's the most, and you know what, there also are some heartbreaking stories. We tend to only think about, the success stories, but, Billy Knight and, taking his own life. Yeah, absolutely. And then you have some too that go through tough times, like Rashid Jordan, served his time and is now in the midst of a comeback.
Awesome.
And is a father to a, newly born daughter. And so there are a lot of different, layers to the experience of being a head coach. And in particular in this era, it's probably more challenging, more complicated than ever before. And but I do take great pride in watching you and your journey with the entrepreneurial, the business side, now kicking this up, which I think is great. It's going to be a smashing success. And that's the joy of it. And that's why, even when you get shown the door, those relationships live forever.
Yes,
and you come into the UCLA job knowing that, you're hired to be fired. There's only one John Wooden, only one Pope, only one true coach in the history of that program. And it'll always be that way. And that's okay. To have a 12-year run for you, to be able to come there and win a national title, and be able to go back to games and hang out with your dad and brother. Because you guys are the celebrity family, the royal family of UCLA.
Coach Rico said no love. What you didn't shout out Rico Hines? You didn't shout out Rico Hines?
Hey, that's almost like a given. You guys already know that was my first recruit.
Thank you.
At UCLA as a head coach, and he was my first hire at St. John's to join my staff, and we were the ultimate ride or die. As a matter of fact, I think the only year in coaching that I didn't go to the postseason was a year where Rico Hines wasn't on the roster.
When he left,
Because at St. John's, we were 4 for 4 together, 2 NITs, 2 NCAAs, and I felt like he was at UCLA 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
But he had that old
7.
soul.
He was there 7 at least.
Yeah.
No,
Didn't he play for Gary Cunningham? I think he played for Cunningham or Gene Bartow. So I used to always kid him that he served in the Korean War.
Oh my God, that's so messed
Might
up.
have been there for Vietnam. Came back on the GI Bill, and but he's found his place. He was a gifted, natural teacher and coach. Even while he was playing, he had all the attributes or characteristics. There was an otherness about him and a maturity, beyond his years. And not that, like all of us, he didn't make some mistakes or have some missteps, but he learned from them. And I just felt, his bearing and temperament when he was with us UCLA, and again what an asset in terms of the way he would manage problems. There were things that never even got to my plate because Rico knew how to take care of it, out of St. John's.
And Lav, let me explain something to you. So he was like that at UCLA, and he was younger. So there are times, and me and Rico are going to do a deep dive on this, but I'm going to tease it a little bit. I mean, there are times, when he had to walk me home from Westwood and make sure I got back to the crib, and he's protecting me from tripping out and basically, going to jail. Or he saved my butt so many times. We're going to talk to Rico about that 11:30 on Wednesday. Y'all tune in for that. But Lav,
that's when you guys were hooting with the
Owls. We were hooting with the Owls. We were hooting, but we were still soaring. We were still soaring with the Eagles.
That's true. That's impressive. You like the old Oakland Raiders.
A little hungover, hungover, but we were still, woo. Hey, come on, man.
And nothing good happens after midnight. That was one of Coach Wooden's phrases. But the caveat to that is there's some interesting things that happen after midnight.
Right.
But not necessarily good in terms of the best interest of, your playing career or performing to your optimum levels. But you did have, just speaking to you for a minute, one of the gifts that I tell people about that you had, and not every athlete can do this. You could be completely in the moment. Let's say playing Duke is one that comes to mind, and we're in a timeout, and there's a couple minutes to go, but you also had a looseness where you were outside of that moment, almost looking back at it. And I think of Joe Montana. There's that famous game against Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken, in the Super Bowl drive late in the game, and they're in a huddle. And Joe Montana says to the rest of the Niners, like, man, that's John Candy in the end zone, the first row. And they all turn around, and sure enough, it is John Candy. And then they go to the line, drive down the field, score, and win the Super Bowl. But, Randy Cross and some of the other players talked about how Montana had this ability to be in the moment, but also be able to enjoy it. And as a result, there was a looseness and a confidence. And you had that ability, whether you were talking about someone that's sitting in, row 6, and it might have been someone beautiful. And you were in the moment appreciating a beautiful woman, and everyone else is locked in on the game. But that loosened the rest of us up to then go out, be able to perform and execute. Or it was you getting fouled in the next play and stepping the line against Michigan and icing it with 8 straight free throws in the NCAA tournament. So I really appreciate that, and that's a gift, because it actually, as a young coach, loosened me up.
Yeah.
And
you used to crack smiles. I used to make you smile. I used to love making, because you'd be stressed out. You'd be, guys, it's quicksand, and, whatever.
Exactly.
But you smile.
And usually you did it right as we were breaking from the timeout. We're headed back on the floor.
Exactly.
But you're like, we got this, coach. Don't worry. I'll never forget Earl did that one game too. We're up at Stanford. I think they're number 1 in the country, undefeated. Mark Matson's senior day. I sometimes mix the 2000 versus 2001 games against Stanford, but early in the game, I think Earl knew, it might have been during the Pitino episode, and they were entertaining and really agreed in terms to Rick
Pitino was going to replace you at UCLA. Okay, exactly.
I think it might have been like the week after that, but I remember Earl coming up to me saying, "Coach, we got this." And it was amazing. From that minute on, right, it made me feel a little more calm and relaxed. I'm trying to win every game, given it looks like I'll be showing the door and Rick's coming in, and then amazing performance and a lot of things about those games up there that were pivots or turning points for us. But
sure,
but just Earl as our point guard and our leader at that stage is probably a junior or a senior. I can't remember which year it was. He directed both those victories, but we got this, coach. There was such certainty. So he was so resolute. And I was like, man, we do have this. Because especially when your point guard and leader knows it.
Yeah.
Right?
Coach, we ride and died for you, man. We would ride and die for you, Coach. And we knew what time it was and all the extenuating circumstances surrounding and the pressure and the hovering. But let's switch reels over to your experience at St. John's. I had a chance to come out there and visit you in 2011. I worked your camp, and I got to be around that program. Talk about the years at St. John's, some of the players, some of the highs, and definitely some of the lows.
Yeah, New York City, as you know, you lived with me for, 5-6 months? I think you were.
It was supposed to be for like 1 week.
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be like 2 or 3 weeks of camp. Right? Make a little extra money, be around our guys.
Sorry,
But
Coach.
it ended up being a 4 or 5 month visit, which I loved because you got to know our players and you got in the gym with them and we're helping them with their game. And then we got to spend time together, which is different when it's not a player coach, but now it's two friends spending time in New York together. So, and of course, Rico was there, one of your brothers. So it just worked out perfectly. So New York in and of itself, then your home court's Madison Square Garden, the tradition and heritage of St. John's. You're in the Big East. And I started my first 3 years in the old Big East. So imagine those league meetings
Georgetown, Villanova, and all that. Yeah.
Bob Huggins, Rick Pitino, Jamie Dixon was at Pittsburgh, Mike Bray at Notre Dame. The legend of all, Bob Huggins of West Virginia.
Yeah.
So, and then younger Turks like Jay Wright and Kevin Willard and myself and Ed Cooley. But those league meetings with the old Big East coaches down in Florida, we'd get together every spring. And just a unique camaraderie. I've been in the Big Ten, been in the Pac-12 now, or the Pac-10 now, Pac-12 and the Big East. And they're wonderful for different reasons. But the Big East just has this unique camaraderie and respect for the tradition of that conference. And the coaches respect each other. Now we're trying to take each other out when it's game day. But then there's this, we have each other back like a team, but it's an entire conference. That goes back to Dan Gavitt. Actually, it goes back to Dave Gavitt, his father, and then Dan Gavitt, who's assistant commissioner, now the head of the NCAA in terms of basketball championships. And so great leadership, and then just a wonderful collection of characters. So the first year at St. John's, we inherited a group of seniors, blessed and fortunate, and we took them to the tournament. It was a great experience. And then we started over. It was like an expansion team because Dwayne Polee transferred to San Diego State, wanted to get back closer to his parents, understandably. Malik Stitt, the only other returner, transferred at Christmas, and I was out that second year with cancer. So we start over, but we had good recruiting classes, and we go 13 wins, 17 wins, 20 wins, and then their final year, their senior year, again, great groups of seniors, 21 wins, an NCAA tournament appearance, and then I was showing the door. Chris Mullen comes in, a new president, no surprise. Yeah. And I didn't hold any bitterness or grudges. I grew up in the Bay Area watching TMC. Yeah. Big Chris Mullen fan.
Shout out Mully. Shout out Mully.
I love. Yeah. We helped him celebrate his
we were there.
Hall of Fame induction. Yeah. It's all good. So, and then I've been back in TV since. But New York City, palpable energy. The number of players, gifted individuals I got to work with, really like UCLA, but just on the other side of the country in terms of major entertainment market, media mecca. And I've been fortunate, even though it's tough operating, coaching, and working in those markets, that's what set up the runs in television. So kind of intermittently going back and forth between TV and coaching.
Right. Talk about, so you had St. John's, you had head coach at UCLA, two high-level basketball institutions. Talk about the difference in the pressure at a UCLA versus the St. John's. Obviously, John wouldn't, but are there other types of pressures that existed?
It's the championships, and it's the unique standard of excellence. And now Coach Wooden was there 15 years. People forget his first national title. He was 53 years old, and he used to say with a twinkle in his eye, Steve, I was a slow learner, but once I figured it out, I was pretty good. And the understatement of all time, because for 15 years he struggled, but he was learning. He was working at his craft. Really, Pete Newell was dominating West Coast basketball back in the day at both San Francisco and then later Cal Berkeley. And Pete Newell retires in 1960. UCLA gets it cracking in that, 1964, 65. And from Walt Hazard, a roster, everyone's 6'5" and under, the full court press, and early small ball. Think about that in the mid-'60s, doing what the Warriors are doing now, or Lute Olson did in 97 Arizona. We had our version of small ball too.
We sure did.
And so just remarkable. And then there's 10 out of 12, 88 straight wins, 4 undefeated seasons. And then he goes out on top. And then everyone since, has taken a crack at it, but they all are showing the door eventually, giving the pink slip and lop chopped. And you move on, grateful you got to play a part. And the 12 years for me, never in my wildest imagination, graduating from a Chapman University and coming from a town where the population is 2,500 people in Northern California, would I have ever imagined being a head coach at UCLA or St. John's. So even when you're showing the door, people be like, aren't you bitter or salty? It was like, no, you have to understand context, big picture, that the gift of having a run at UCLA and St. John's and TV in between, for me to ever look at it in any other way than a gift and abundance, and to give thanks and salute and move forward when you're showing the door and wish the next guy well. Batter up, take a crack at it, because I know it's going to be chin music the whole time.
Absolutely.
Use the baseball analogy. And if you don't thrive
High
and enjoy
heels.
that, right? It's like then this is not the right fit for you. Like, you kind of have to understand that, keep a certain lighthearted, healthy perspective about it, because it can be pretty grim and dark if you don't have that lighthearted and some grace and gratefulness for what's happening in the moment, which is one of the gifts you have. We were just talking about, you can be in it, but have a healthy perspective as well, that it's not life or death. It's not coronavirus. It's not cancer. It's not losing a loved one. And so keep that in perspective. While it's important, I want to win every game. I'm going for the championship. I want to be undefeated. But I also have to realize, in the grand scheme of things, where the game of, where is sports, right? There's that old phrase, sports is still in the toy department of life. And I think you have to remember that, even though it's a business, there's big money and there's pressure, you really need to keep a more healthier, balanced outlook on it if you're going to be able to lead young people in the way I think they deserve to be led.
Coach, one of our viewers has a question for you. It's SG Trilogy. He wants to know, would you go back to college coaching for the right opportunity?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd go back tomorrow if it was the right fit, because I do miss the competition at the highest level, the camaraderie with young people and your staff, working towards common goals as a group. And I love being on a college campus. My dad was an English, literature, philosophy, poetry teacher.
Wow.
He authored 17 books. He taught at Cal Berkeley, San Francisco State, College of Marin, Dominican, also at Francis Drake High School, Lavin. And so I grew up on college campuses. He taught a class one night a week at San Quentin Prison back in the 70s. He would bring me in. I got to meet, inmates. I got to meet, the chefs, the cooks, the people that were closer to being let out of San Quentin Prison. But some of his favorite students were the prisoners of San Quentin. They had brilliant minds, and obviously a context, an experience that was so different than the students he had at Cal Berkeley or San Francisco State or College of Marin or Dominican. So teaching and education is kind of in our blood. My mom was art history. She raised the 6 children on an educator's salary. And then she went back, finished her degree in art history. Edward Hopper was her area that she specialized. And then she worked in human resources in corporate America for 25 years because those 2 incomes allowed their children to go to school. And so parents were remarkable teachers in the home and then also in the classroom. And that's what makes a return to coaching appealing. With that said, being undefeated, having more of a balanced life in broadcasting is really appealing. And I love the people I work for at Fox Sports. But if that right fit, it doesn't have to necessarily be big. It's about the fit. Like, I was enjoying my time at ESPN with Brent Musburger, an incredible mentor to learn from. And there were jobs I turned down, like North Carolina State in 2005 or 6. I can't remember the year. And I just didn't feel ready to return. I think I was still recharging. 12 years at UCLA takes a little bit out of you. Jeez. And then I was enjoying learning a second career and all the mechanics and fundamentals of television. And it was like working under a Spielberg or a Lucas, but in sports television, because Brent Musburger is a giant. And so I wasn't in a rush to leave that. And then St. John's came knocking in 2010. That was different. That was a dead sprint across the finish line. As you know, the things we talked about earlier, I mean, it was just a perfect marriage. I knew we could be successful when we were. But a new president comes in, understandably wants Chris Mullen, higher profile, one of their own, a legend in New York City history and a Hall of Famer as a player. So that led to a new break that revealed back in television. Here we are today.
What does Steve Lavin do when he's not commentating?
That's an interesting question. My life has been basketball, and contrary to maybe some misperceptions, I don't belong to a country club. I don't play golf. I don't play tennis. Basketball has been it. I don't have any children. And so, it's really been all I do. And I think that may be contrary to people thinking that's not the case. But I do love walking, getting outdoors. I love hiking. I like getting on my bike.
Nice.
I like doing yoga, things that I call gentle movement, because I'm at an age where I don't want to play basketball, blow out a knee,
Sure.
and then not be able to move and
Sure.
bike and walk.
Well, not be able to get into your stance and do big step, big step, big step, big step, big step.
Exactly. Even if it's only for 15 seconds at this age, right?
Hey,
Yeah.
shout out to you. Whenever I see you do that, I'm like, holy crap, because I can't do it no more, coach. I can't do it no more.
That's classic. So yeah, no, I love movies. I love cinema. I like to travel. I like wine. I've started to get into Japanese whiskeys.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Hibiki, Harmony.
Wait, let's stay on wine. Let's stay on
Suntory.
wine. Let's stay on wine. Let's get your top 5 cabs or maybe a Pinot Noirs that you go hard with. Let's top 5, Lav.
Okay, well, let's start first without even going labels.
Okay.
Or wineries. I love more fruit forward. Wines. If I'm looking at the reds. And so, Cab Franc, there's also the blends, where you get some Cab Franc, some Merlot. So I do like blends, and I tend to like the more fruit forward or jammy, whether that's the Napa Cabs, but I love, Paso Robles has some great wines going on. The Northwest, Oregon has some tremendous wines as well. And Amarone for an Italian wine in terms of overseas. And if I'm going fancy, Rubicon,
Silver Oak,
Francis Ford Coppola, Silver Oak's a great one, Quintessa. Now, there are those like a new one called Earthquake. I like Earthquake's Zinfandel, and that's more of a bargain. I can get it at Ralph's. If you buy 6 at a time, it's 30% off. Plus, if you got the Ralph card number, you get another 10% off.
What?
So that's a bargain.
Wait, you care about that now? You just didn't care about that in the past. You used to be like, Stoddy, go give me some wine. You give me $1,000, and I come home with 3 bottles.
And so, and I love that you said that, because this is your gift for embellishing. It's why you're such a great storyteller and an instigator, and I always appreciated that. Yeah, and because you could rile people up and lead to better banter and discussion than anyone I know. You could do that as a freshman, and then you're even better as a senior. And so now you've mastered it. You're kind of at a Jedi level of embellishing. So I always get a kick out of that. But no doubt, sometimes you just want to have fun, and you're just going to celebrate. And I think that's important in life. Life is short. And one thing cancer has taught me, it's that, how valuable, how tenuous, how fragile life is. And you still start losing your mother and father. That's another kind of layer of appreciating each moment. I would tell you guys and tell my St. John's guys, we come out of our mother's womb, right? We usually get a slap on the fanny. We have our first burp and then our first breath. And then at some point we have our last breath, and hopefully loved ones are around us. So first breath, last breath, everything in between is opportunity and making the most of it. We talked the other night about the carpe diem and, living for the moment and living life fully, and yet still having your feet on the ground and knowing that, you got to pay bills and you got to take care of your health and those that you love and care about, and think about longevity as well. So it's a balance, which I think is the most important word. John Wooden said the 2 most important words in basketball are quickness and balance. And the 2 most important words in life are love and balance. And that's a deep one if you start to really break that down. And I think it's true that in basketball, you look at the teams that are at the top, they've got quickness and balance. There's other things, skill and whatnot. But he means offensive balance in terms of your spacing. He means physically having the head between the midpoint of the 2 feet, like you're sitting in a chair, in terms of body balance. That's really what a jump stop is.
Absolutely.
And then transition defense, having balance to prevent teams from getting high percentage shots on you. And then he means emotional and physical and spiritual balance. And then, you take it to that element also of love, right? That's that element that if you approach everything, right, with a prism or a lens of love, not saying it's easy and not saying that, it doesn't take time to arrive there, but more often we're operating in that realm of seeing the world through a lens or prism of love, we're better off. And that's the gift of Coach Wooden being around 99 years. The last time I visited him in 2010, he was in the midst of doing a deep dive on all world religions. and I saw all these books out and notes and highlighter pens. I was like, Coach, what's going on here? What are you getting into? He said, I'm doing a study on all world religions, looking for the commonalities between all these religions, because we know that the differences are what has led to genocide and carnage and death and things that obviously we now look back on and realize, and it's still happening around the world.
Sure.
In terms of that divide based on religions. And so what an interesting deep dive or study at 99 years old as he's headed to the finish line. And he said, I happen to be a Christian, but the older I get, the more I realize that really at the core, all of these religions share the same principles, but we have somehow found a way to focus and amplify on the differences of these religions.
Right.
And but it just speaks to his outlook on love, and obviously he's extremely interested and set such a great example. His intellectual appetite, his questions, that was a gift. And I'm so glad I was able to spend the 20 years around him. Your father's now 45 years probably. He was able to spend with him before he passed, and you were able to spend time with him as well as all of our players were when he come in and speak to us in the locker room or in practice or going over to his apartment.
He called me my senior year, the day of when we played Mater Dei. You remember that game, Lav? I think you guys, I don't know if you were there, but we played Mater Dei in the regional championship. I'm at breakfast, eating my pancakes. My dad always made me pancakes on game days. He comes in. He's like, hey, man, somebody's on the phone for you. And I'm just kind of like, I thought it was my grandmother or somebody else. I pick up the phone, and it's like, hey, Chris, this is John Wooden. I just wanted to call and wish you a great game today. I'll be watching. I was just holding the phone like, oh, my God. But Coach Wooden, just his voice, the words of wisdom, just even a nod. If I saw Coach Wooden he do this, my chest was like, my heart was aching, butterflies in my stomach, and I would get out on the court, and I would know that he was watching. So I would go hard, Coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's that Jedi, his presence, right? Had that aura, the Force is with you, element, to use a Star Wars analogy. And I still get chills thinking about, like you said, just a nod, but the rituals, right? We appreciate rituals as we get older, like the sacraments, but athletes and coaches and teams are about routine and rituals and our habits. And thinking about my final few games at Poly, and I've thought about it intermittently before, but recently just had flashbacks to, the last pregame talk, the last half game talk, the last post game, and then taking it to the pregame when Coach Wooden arrived and getting that nod from him, or sometimes I go shake the hand, that last national anthem. And it's more significant when you realize this is the last home game after 12 years of coming to those home games and listen to the national anthem. Everything is amplified. And, but part of that was that for 12 years as a player, you experienced it. Being on the staff, I experienced it. Looking behind that bench, and it really was like a larger-than-life figure, the Gandhi of college basketball, or Mother Teresa of college basketball.
Absolutely.
And the fact we were able to be around his greatness, his spirit, and just his humility. And I've saved all the letters. If I was ever able to do a book, I've got letters from the years I was an assistant and the years as the head coach, and then after my tenure there. But I like to reread those letters, and it's usually him just riffing about friendship, or it could have been a big road trip. We get a sweep in Arizona, we're coming back, and he'd send a letter that next week talking about how proud he was of how the boys, the fellas, came together as a group and they're playing in a cohesive manner. During the Patino episode, there were more letters and more phone calls because he was reaching out to provide encouragement, which is really providing the courage when you may not have it yourself. And just how he was so in tune with when to, provide that encouragement or to provide some wisdom or perspective because of his life experience. And that's a gift as a teacher, parent, and coach, to know when to potentially intercede or when to give a call or when to write a note. And now it's more technology, so it could be a text, but remembering, especially during this period, this last year or so, with the election and with COVID and all the things that are going on with our economy and people being out of work and mental health issues, that little nudge, that little love or sharing the sugar, as Coach Wooden did, is really important. You're doing it with this setup.
And that was the intent, Lab. That was my intent, man. I really felt like Kobe dying really opened my eyes to stuff that anybody could be taken away at any given moment. And it's real now. The shit is real. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't matter who it is. My dad, you,
Yeah.
me, it doesn't matter, man. So it's like when you start thinking like that, I was moved to do this. I was moved to start reaching out to my folks, the people. I reached out to, all you guys, man, just to shout you out and talk, man, because you just never know about tomorrow. But Coach, one more question, and I kind of, we're going to wrap the interview up. I really just wanted to get to set the stage. So 97, 96, 97, you got the job. That's around the time that Kobe Bryant was drafted as a 17-year-old rookie. As the head coach at UCLA, 32 years old, you probably had a different experience than us as players did in your interactions with Kobe. I know you guys lived in Newport near each other at some point or somewhere like
Yes.
that. So can you just give us some thoughts on Kobe and describe some of the interaction that you had with him at an early age?
Yeah, it's interesting. First, we recruited Kobe, but we knew that it was likely he was going to go straight to the NBA. Sonny Vaccaro, who was close to Kobe and his family, and Kobe was close to Arn Tellem, and Arn Tellem was my agent and was also Kobe's agent initially before he went with Rob Pelinka when Rob Pelinka kind of broke off and did had his own practice as a sports agent. Now he's with the LA Lakers, 6 degrees again, right, of separation of LA and basketball. So we recruited him. And then, as you know, he lived on the West Side early in his career before moving to Newport Coast. And Arn was representing him. So he was on campus a lot. We'd see him, drinking a smoothie on Bruin Walk before he was going to the men's gym or the Wooden Center or using Pauly during our practices. And he was a rookie in the NBA the year I was a rookie coach. And so that was also interesting, always respectful, so good with you guys in terms of his engagement and the example he was setting, that on off days, he'd be on that far court once we weren't using it, and he's either on his own or someone was feeding him, and then he'd watch practice for a little bit and then go back to his workout routines. Was able to participate in the Kobe Bryant bowling tournament. That's when I was teamed with, I think, Andy Garcia, struck up a friendship with him. And that was a result, again, of Arn representing Kobe and putting on charitable events like his bowling tournament. So, and then down at Newport Coast, I'd see him when grocery shopping. Yeah, there were a lot of kind of intersect, and then going to Laker games and playoff games because Lakers always hooked it up for us, Kupchak and
the thing about it that I tell people about Kobe, and Toby was on the show, and he did a really good job of just breaking down some stories. When he first came on campus, man, he was, as Toby puts it, he was like a pit bull, that was looking for the biggest and baddest dude, and he was ready to go at your head. And when I say go at your head, he's trying to dunk on. He's 17. He's treating 19 and 20-year-old college kid, us, like we 16 and 15. He's coming at us like we the rookies, and he was the dude. And you don't understand, I don't think anyone quite understood how just difficult it was mentally for us to deal with Kobe, a 17-year-old, handsome, probably more handsome than you. He's taller than you. He's got more money than you, and he's in the league already. So imagine, we thought we had an ego walking around UCLA thinking we the shit, and then Kobe Bryant walks in the door, and you're just like, oh. You're just like deflated. But what it did for me, man, it just inspired me to work my butt off. And I never, thought I'd ever achieve the level of a Kobe, but I knew I was going to work my ass off, and whatever I got out of it, I got out of it.
Well, I never thought of it about that through the perspective of a, 18, 19-year-old freshman or sophomore in college. And you guys had a lot of practice, obviously, because, Magic and Reggie Theus and, all the NBA, Pooh, all the former UCLA guys coming back as well. But you're right, Kobe was the unicorn because, he was hanging out before he even got with the Lakers in preparation for training camp and preparation for his rookie season. And that is so interesting to see it, put myself in your shoes at that age. I was looking at, as an assistant and a head coach, what an asset to have him around because those men's gym runs helped us recruit. And that's why we have the team camps, the regular camps. I remember Matt Barnes coming down for a team camp from Sacramento, Del Campo High School, same school Dusty Baker went to. And, when he saw those runs, when any recruit saw those runs, that's why Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, they get the commitment before the recruits ever got to our campus, because if we had them on a 48-hour visit and they see the men's gym runs, they go, or they go out to the Rose Bowl for football Saturday, and then you guys are hosting them at night. Plus, there's Gladstones at the beach, on Saturday morning.
Hey, don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short. You're the master. You are the master. Do not get this twisted. Don't put it on us. Don't put it on us. Gladstones.
Boozer was one of the few. I wish I could do a redo on Carlos Boozer.
I apologize for that, Coach. I'm sorry. I clowned him a little too much. So Carlos Boozer shows up to UCLA on his visit wearing some like Kurt Cobain Nirvana type flannel with some jeans and like some Birkenstocks with his feet out. I mean, his toes out. So back then we weren't wearing sandals with jeans. It wasn't a look that was popular amongst our crew. So we made fun of him a little bit. And unfortunately, he didn't ever show up. And we did the same with Big Ski, Eric Chenoweth. I don't know if you remember Eric Chenoweth when you guys brought him on campus. We kind of went hard on Eric. But those were the days.
It might have happened to Chris Owens as well, a little bit after your era. He was a heck of a player and going to Texas. And if I were to redo, I would have probably shielded some of these guys from the tough love that you were showing. They weren't ready for that tough love compared to the other visits. But at the same time, even though I would have loved to have had all those three players you just mentioned, there's something about, that test, because I didn't want a player, not that these three in any manner were afraid of the challenge of UCLA, but there were other recruits that I think came and realized on their visit that it just wasn't for them. And that's okay, because, it has to be a mutual embrace and a good fit. No bitterness about it. It's like, look, if you're not comfortable here, then the last thing you want to do is come because you feel pressure from a parent or you feel like you have to do it. Go to a place where you feel comfortable.
Yep.
And so it ultimately, thankfully, most of the time worked out. There might be 4 or 5. CJ Watson, he wanted to come. I think if I had closed hard, Chuck Hayes, those were 2 recruits.
Shout out Chuck. He follows me on Twitter. Shout out Chuck Hayes.
I love them, and I made the mistake of trying to get them to hold off, and I don't blame them. Because I should have pursued them aggressively and tried to get them early. We were looking at, Tyson Chandler, Jamal Sampson, Josh Childress, Cedric Bozeman, and we thought maybe because they had played together that we'd be able to get all of them, like a Fab 5 or a Fab 4 of Southern California. But in hindsight, this is how we learn, and it informed my recruiting. And not that we made too many mistakes, but that class would have been a group. And I forget if they were all in the same class, but Chuck Hayes was one of my favorite all-time players.
Yep.
And eventually, we're going to be showing the door no matter what. Everyone has before me and everyone has since, or everyone was before me and everyone has since. But maybe, it's 2-3 more years before you're showing the door if we had Chuck Hayes and C.J. Watson with the other pieces that were in place. But again, you only look back long enough to learn, and that informed my recruiting at St. John's, and I was probably a little more aggressive early at getting a Maurice Harkless, at getting a Jakar Sampson, Don Pointer, Phil Green, D'Angelo Harrison, and Amir Garrett, and not dragging the feet whatsoever in trying to hedge and see if they'll still be around late. So that's the interesting thing. But each recruiting class and each recruit is different, so you can't come up with an absolute universal approach.
Formula.
You've got to feel it and intuit it based on the relationship, based on your personnel, your roster, looking, where you are in terms of balance in your classes. And I made my share of mistakes, but thankfully, as Coach Wooden said, I may have been a slow learner, but once we got it figured out, we were pretty good.
Absolutely, Coach. 3 top 5 classes. That speaks volumes. Coach, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much.
It was fun.
For coming on, Lav. I love you, man.
Love you.
We're all going to be watching you on March Madness. Make sure we all tune in and check out Lav. He's the best in the business. And thank you for coming on KJ Live, Coach.
Love you. Take care. Best of the fam. I'll talk to you soon.
Love you too, Coach.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.